There is a widespread assumption about how reality operates at its highest level. It relies on the idea of a transactional universe, a cosmic judge keeping a ledger of human actions, weighing good deeds against bad. But if we examine this logically, a glaring contradiction emerges. If a divine creator or ultimate truth is actually absolute and perfect, it should lack nothing. So why would a perfect entity require human acknowledgement? If an absolute being gets angry at human errors or pleased by human devotion, it is experiencing a reaction. A being that reacts to external stimuli is being influenced by those stimuli. By definition, that makes it dependent on humans, entirely shattering its status as an absolute. In the 11th century, a Persian philosopher and Ismaili thinker named Naser Khosrow identified this exact logical paradox, and to resolve it, he abandoned the language of human emotion and turned to systems theory. Khosrow discarded the concept of an emotional, scorekeeping deity. He argued that to understand reality, we have to look at it as a rigorous, deterministic physics engine. To explain how this engine works, Khosrow built a specific logic model. He mapped the concept of divine unity, or tawhid, directly onto the physical properties of the sun. This diagram illustrates his baseline. The sun radiates reality and light uniformly and constantly, regardless of what exists below it. Khosrow places the human agent below this light as an observer. The observer possesses a choice. When they open their eyes, they acquire the light's utility, navigating obstacles and thriving, aligning with reality. When they close their eyes, light fails to penetrate. They lose all utility, stumbling into darkness and stagnation. The crucial variable in Khosrow's model is the source. The sun's output never fluctuated. It gained zero benefit when the observer opened their eyes, and it suffered zero deficit when the observer closed them. We can define this as ontological asymmetry. The absolute remains eternally unaffected by human alignment. However, human alignment dictates entirely whether the human system survives or perishes. Khosrow provides a second logic model to explain what happens when a person actively works against this systemic reality. He asks us to imagine a stonebreaker who goes to a mountain and haphazardly smashes rocks without any structural plan or architectural intent. At the end of the day, the master builder refuses to pay the stonebreaker for this chaotic rubble. To the exhausted stonebreaker, this denial feels exactly like a punishment. The architectural reality is completely different. The master builder didn't actively curse the worker or seek their ruin. The worker simply failed to align their physical energy with a useful structural goal. This reframes the entire concept of divine reward, or thawab. Reward is not a gold star handed down by a sovereign judge. It is the intrinsic physics of teleological alignment, the natural result of organizing your actions toward a purposeful end. In Khosrow's universe, punishment is never a divine intervention. It is merely the natural, systemic consequence of wasting your own energy. This exact systemic logic appears well outside of pure philosophy, anchoring the poetry of the Sufi mystic Jalal al-Din Rumi and his masterwork, the Mathnawi. Rumi employs the metaphor of a bat attempting to navigate in direct sunlight. The bat is physically incapable of processing the immense radiation, and so it recoils into the dark. Rumi's structural conclusion aligns perfectly with Khosrow. Rumi states that if the bat cannot bear the sun's glory is not diminished in the slightest way. Turning away from the truth is not an indictment of reality. It is an act of self-imposed internal isolation by a system unable to process the data. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what you think. Your support means a lot and helps me keep creating content for you all. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Rumi is diagnosing the mechanics of denial. The ultimate truth doesn't actively hide itself to test humans. The human apparatus simply fails to tune to its overwhelming frequency. If we move backward in time to classical Greece, the founders of Western thought were attempting to resolve this exact same paradox. Aristotle laid the groundwork with his defining metaphysical concept, the unmoved mover, which is often called the prime mover. The unmoved mover acts as the primary cause for all motion in the universe, but it achieves this not by physically pushing things, but by being loved as the ultimate object of desire. Every other entity moves toward it in an attempt to realize its own potential. This relationship is entirely one-sided. The unmoved mover does not love the universe back. Because it is already perfectly actualized and lacks nothing, it requires no interaction. The topology matches Khosrow's sun. The prime mover sits at the center, eternally independent, while the rest of the universe benefits merely from aligning its trajectory toward it. By the 17th century, the scientific revolution began merging with these ancient models. We see this synthesis clearly in Baruch Spinoza's Ethics. Spinoza introduced a core axiom, Deus sive natura, which translates to God or nature. He treated the absolute as an infinite, interlocking mathematical substance, where every cause has an inevitable effect. From this determinism, Spinoza extracts a mathematically sound rule. He who loves God cannot endeavor that God should love him in return. Demanding that the universe alter its fundamental laws just to personally reward you is an arrogant glitch in human logic. Gravity does not suspend itself because you acted ethically. For Spinoza, true beatitude is the intellectual love of reality. The reward is found entirely in understanding how the system works and living in frictionless accordance with it. Understanding the structure is the reward, and ignorance of the structure is the punishment. This is the precise logical equivalent of Khosrow's stonebreaker. This structural alignment holds true even when we shift the geographical lens entirely, moving to ancient China and the core texts of Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. Lao Tzu outlines the Tao, or the Way, which is navigated through the practice of Wu Wei, a precise state of action executed without unnatural effort or friction. The Tao operates like a rushing river. It provides water and nourishment to the entire ecosystem, but it claims no ownership over the forest, and it passes no moral judgments on the animals drinking from it. Applying Khosrow's logic, if you choose to swim violently against the river's current and exhaust yourself to the point of drowning, the river did not punish you out of malice. You harmed yourself by resisting its physical reality. We see the same mechanics in the early philosophical roots of Buddhism regarding the concept of karma. When stripped of its modern pop culture myths, karma is not a cosmic point system managed by an unseen accountant. It is an impersonal, moral physics of cause and effect. Every action generates a ripple that inevitably returns. Whether we are observing a Persian stonebreaker wasting his labor or a Buddhist generating negative karma, the underlying mechanism is identical. The universe never passes a sentence. The action itself is the sentence. We have traversed an 11th century Ismaili text, Sufi poetry, Greek metaphysics, Enlightenment rationalism, Taoist philosophy, and Buddhist physics. Despite cultural boundaries and temporal isolation, these thinkers mapped the same topological reality. Aristotle's unmoved mover and Spinoza's nature fit flawlessly into the center, functioning exactly like Khosrow's sun. Tao and karma represent the connecting vectors, the deterministic physics governing alignment and friction. The absolute, whether you call it God, truth, or reality, is never a transactional merchant you can bargain with. Wisdom is not about negotiating with the universe for a reward. It is simply the quiet, rational decision to open your eyes to the sun.